All right, so welcome to our What is Chemistry introductory PowerPoint. For those of you that don't have me in class, my name is Mr. Murphy. For those of you that have me in class, you guys hopefully have a good idea of who I am already, right? From our phase-in days. So I don't really have any announcements to make for my students. You should be finding this video on Schoology. For Mrs. McLeod's students, I'm sure she's posting it on Schoology somewhere. I'm sure she'll check in with you guys on your Zooms to tell you where she's posting that. For those of us that want to take electronic notes, notes on our iPad, I have this in my classroom as a PDF on my Schoology. So if you open up your PowerPoint here, I call it a PowerPoint, but it's really a PDF. If you open it up through Schoology, you should get a screen that looks exactly like mine here. Click this thing in the top right, this box with the arrow coming out. Click Mark Up, and I now have should have the ability. There we go. Have the ability to write on my PDF. When I'm done, all I got to do is click Save File To, and then pick where I'm going to save it. But I'm obviously not going to do that yet because we got some chemistry to get into. All right, so what is chemistry? We're going to kind of go through that here on the next slide. If I can get this to work. There we go. All right, so today's learning targets. I can define and correctly use the vocabulary words for this unit. So we're going to kind of talk you guys through some of our vocabulary terminology, what that is, and how we are going to use it for chemistry this school year. Number two, I can describe the study of chemistry on this next slide here. We have the definition of chemistry, and I'll kind of take you guys through that definition of chemistry, highlight some of the important aspects, and we're gonna kind of go through here the different aspects of that definition on these next few slides. Bullet point number three, I can distinguish between the three states of matter. Hopefully most of us have a good idea of what the three states of matter are: solid, liquid, and gas. We're going to talk about which ones have a definite shape, definite volume, which ones have no shape, no volume. We'll kind of go through that here in a few slides. Point number four, I can distinguish between the physical and chemical properties of matter. So for those of us that are familiar with physical and chemical changes, physical and chemical properties, this might be a review, but for some of us it might be new. So we'll kind of go through that as well. And then the last one, we can distinguish between physical and chemical changes of matter. So go through that. All right, so what is chemistry? Chemistry is the study of the composition, structure. Chemistry is the study of the composition, structure, and properties of matter, the processes that matter undergoes, and the energy changes that accompany these processes. So there's a lot of good stuff there. First of all, study of the composition, structure, and properties of matter. The reason I'm going to highlight that is because on the next slide, we're going to kind of go through some of the properties of solids, liquids, and gases. So we're going to basically go through that exact part here on the next slide. The second part here, the processes that matter undergoes. We'll go through that in probably 2 or 3 slides. We're going to go through the different physical and chemical changes and how those affect the physical and chemical properties. So that's kind of what we're really doing, guys, is we're building this baseline of information for you guys to have kind of throughout the school year, and then we're going to go into more detail throughout the school year. So today you're going to kind of get this general scaffolding of what we're going to do for the school year almost, and then throughout the school year we're going to reference things like chemical changes or physical changes, and our expectation is that you guys are able to recall that information so we can kind of communicate more clearly. And then the last one, energy changes that accompany these processes. So anytime that matter undergoes some sort of change, some sort of chemical change, the law of conservation of energy applies. Maybe that's a term you are familiar with. Maybe it's a term you're not familiar with. But I promise you it's a term that you will be familiar with before the end of the school year. So, analytical chemistry. All the cool kids are doing it. What is matter? So matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So let's kind of go through the different kinds of matter. First, we'll start over here for gas. Gases have no shape. And they also have no definite volume, right? So gases have no shape, meaning that no matter where they are going to expand to fill wherever they are at, whether that's a gas contained in a bottle, whether that's the gases of the atmosphere, okay? They will never have a shape and they will never have a volume, okay? So pretty self-explanatory on the gases. Liquids, a little bit different. Liquids are going to have no shape, okay? But they do have a, what we're going to call a defined volume. All right, make sure we get, there we go, a little bit better E. Handwriting's not always the best. I apologize in advance. So no shape, but a definite volume, right? So a liquid's going to fill the container and then take on the shape of that container, right? So we can never say for certain what the shape of a liquid is, but the defined volume means that we always have a defined amount of liquid in that container, right? We can put 2 ounces of Coke in a 2 liter. We can put 2 ounces of Coke in a cup. The shape of that might look different, but we're always going to have the same 2 ounces, right? So this takes us to our last one. Solids are going to have a defined shape. And then fit this in here. Defined volume. So a solid, just like you guys might imagine, has a defined shape and defined volume no matter what we do. If it's in the solid state, we are always going to have that defined shape and defined volume. That's a property of a solid. That's never going to change no matter what kind of solid you have, okay? So those are kind of the properties of our 3 states of matter. Our 3 states of matter are these gases, liquids, and solids. These pictures might be something that you want to familiarize yourself with. These pictures right here. You guys can see here the gases are kind of floating. There's a lot of distance between these 2 particles here, right? And these 2 molecules. The liquid, there's still distance between the liquids ones. You guys can see kind of right here where I'm drawing. Pen's a little light, but there's still distance here. Whereas a solid, you get that really, really defined. Let's see if I can make this thicker. All right, you get that really defined shape with less distance between the molecules. All right, moving on. Physical versus chemical. So we're going to talk about physical properties and chemical properties. And we're going to talk about physical changes and chemical changes. Okay, so first, a physical property. A physical property is a characteristic that can be observed or measured without changing the identity of the substance. Okay, so let's think about some physical properties that we may be able to think of right off the top of our head. So physical properties could be anything like color. Okay, so if I'm looking at a car, one car is red, one car is blue. That's a physical property. Another one could be something like texture. Okay, if I feel some sort of countertop and that countertop is smooth versus I feel another countertop and that countertop is bumpy, that's a different type of texture. Okay, those are different types of physical properties. I'll leave some space here for you guys to kind of fill in some of your own if you want. Physical properties are pretty easy to come up with as long as you can see them, touch them, measure them without changing the identity of the substance. It is considered a physical property. Next, we got physical changes. A change in a substance that does not involve a change in the identity. So physical changes could be anything, really, like I said, without changing the identity. So I'm going to highlight that here. Does not involve a change in the identity, okay? Without changing the identity. That's the big thing, because what we're going to find out with chemical changes and chemical properties is that they are changing the identity of the substance. So that could be like a state of matter change, like liquid to gas, okay? That would be some sort of chemical change. Physical change isn't that. So A physical change could be something like breaking. Whoop, that's a little thick. Pull that back. There we go. So let's say like breaking or shattering. What I mean by that is, like, let's imagine we have a pane of glass. You're carrying a pane of glass through your garage and you trip over a shoe or something, you drop the pane of glass and it shatters across the floor. That would be a physical change, right? We aren't necessarily changing the identity of the substance. So we're not necessarily changing the identity of the substance. It's still glass, right? It's just smaller pieces of glass now. So that's a physical change. Okay, the identity of the substance remains the same, but the way it looks has now changed. All right, last slide here. Chemical property. Chemical property relates to a substance's ability to undergo changes that transform it into a different substance. So the difference here between... Oh, I don't know what to do. Difference here between a physical and a chemical property is, and I'm going to highlight it here, relates to a substance's ability to undergo changes. That's not what I wanted to do. Where's the highlighter? Oh, here it is. To undergo changes that transform it into a different substance. Okay. So a chemical property could be ability like melting point. Okay. Let me put that in here. That's a good one. Or boiling point. I like that pen better. You guys can actually read that one a little bit better. Chemical property, so melting point or boiling point, right? If I have a piece of ice, okay, and that melts into water, that is that substance changing from the solid state, right, of ice to the liquid state of water, okay? That melting point is a chemical property. We are changing how those molecules are interacting, okay? Rather before, in a physical change, we weren't changing anything with how they interact. This is changing how they interact. If we boil water, right? If we have, let's see if I can do this. All right, if I have a pot here that I'm boiling water in, right? And that's giving off some sort of steam. Okay, our water is changing right into a gas, right? Our liquid is going to a gaseous state. All right, that's going to be a chemical property or a chemical change, okay? So the boiling point is the point at which this water is changing into a gas, okay? That's a chemical property. A chemical change is kind of like I just said, so we can kind of draw an arrow and kind of take this into our last point of the day. Chemical change is a change in which one or more substances are converted into different substances. So once again, the big thing is right here, guys, this change. Okay, a change in one or more substances are converted into different substances. So like we just said, we have that boiling when water is actually boiling. Okay. Okay, when this process up here is happening, okay, that is a chemical change. Okay, so the chemical property is the boiling point. Okay, the point at which the water boils, that's a chemical property. A chemical change is the process of going from a liquid to a gas. Okay, we're changing from one state of matter to the other state of matter. Okay, same thing with melting point. If we were to melt and we had an ice cube, I'm going to have a black ice cube here. Okay. It's a sunny day. Okay, this ice cube is eventually going to melt into this sad little pool of water. Okay, my ice cube just melted into water. That would be our melting. Okay, so this process process of going from one state of matter to the other state of matter. We are having some sort of change. All right. So that's going to conclude our PowerPoint for the day. This introductory PowerPoint, what is chemistry? Like I said, guys, this is kind of an introduction into what we are going to be doing the rest of the school year. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask myself or Mrs. McLeod. For my electronic note takers, remember all I have to do is click done. Once you are finished, whoop. What happened there? Oh, it's not getting me the opportunity to save anymore, even though before it was. Well, I'm going to check it back on that because we should just be able to click done and then save it to our files. Let's try this. What if we click? Okay, here we go. So I can click this little thing up here, this box with the arrow sharing out. I can click Save to Files, and then you can save it anywhere, iCloud Drive on your iPad or in your Google Drive. So I'll save it on my iPad for now. Actually, I'll save it on my Google Drive. Save it back here, and I'll kind of get you guys out of here now. But that's how you guys would save your annotated notes. So if you guys have any questions, let me or Mrs. McLeod know. I'll be checking Schoology for updates on assignments. If you have questions, give us a shout via email. Thank you.